Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting for Monday, May 13th. We have a pretty good sized crowd in attendance this evening. If you could begin to make your way in and grab an available seat. We appreciate having the chambers close to being filled on any particular board night, so we appreciate all those that are in attendance this evening. Just a few highlights about our meeting this evening. We've got several proclamations and special recognition this evening. We've got the first reading of many items on the FY20, so the 2020 annual budget. We also have a first reading for rezoning on a portion of the Fulmer property as well. And you do not need, well, actually we'll have no public hearings this evening. We do have citizens to be heard, and we have many sheets that have been turned in and submitted. If you'd like to speak this evening, we have citizens to be heard. It comes to us at the form of item number 6 on the agenda. You fill out a sheet and bring it to the city clerk before we get to item 6, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. We'll go over the guidelines and the rules at that appropriate time. This evening, our invocation will be led by Parks Director Pam Beasley, our pledge by Alderman Rocky Yonda. Please rise.
Let us pray. Gracious and Heavenly Father, you are the giver of all that is good, and we thank you for our many blessings, our beautiful city, and a community that is vibrant and welcoming. We are grateful for all the opportunities that exist here in Germantown, as we are truly proud to call this special place our home. Bless each person here tonight and at home as we continue to set direction for our city. Guide us in our discussions tonight, enlightening our minds and opening our hearts so that we may effectively do our part as public servants. May we be generous in our outlook and strong in getting to your will. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Just for the record to reflect, Alderman Position 3 is not in attendance this evening. All other aldermen are present and accounted for the Monday, May 13th meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Item 4, setting of the agenda. The agenda was published and presented to the public in advance of this meeting this evening. The board meets each Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting night in executive session at 5:30. At that time, there were no additions or modifications, changes to the agenda at that time. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented to the public?
Move to approve.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda.
Yes.
Thank you. The agenda has been adopted this evening. Takes us to item 5 on the agenda, approval of the minutes from the meeting held on April 22nd, 2019. During executive session, there were no corrections to the minutes or additions. Is there a motion? Is there any corrections or modifications at this time? Is there a motion to adopt the minutes and approve the minutes presented to the public?
Move to approve. Second.
It's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Owens, Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders.
Yes.
The approval of the minutes have been approved for the meeting held on April 22nd, 2019. That brings us to item 6 on the agenda this evening, citizens to be heard. For some of the late arrivals, I'm just going ahead and would make a quick announcement. You have time to bring any other forms forward as well. Recently, after listening to many of our neighbors and residents' concern, especially those that live near Dogwood and attend Dogwood School, the applicant, Tower Ventures, has been working with GMSD, the City of Germantown, Planning and Development Department, and many others to change the location of the proximity for where the tower will be placed. It's been a challenge, obviously, as all of us know. As of Friday, the city is in receipt of an application by Tower Ventures for a revised location that is approximately 105 feet further away from the school building at Dogwood, 253 feet in total, 360 feet away from the new playground being constructed by the parent-teacher organization. This also places it 238 feet away from the closest neighbors in the residential areas adjacent to the school. This matter will first have to be considered by the Germantown Municipal School Board as part of a contract amendment to their original agreement that was approved in September of 2018. So just want to let folks in attendance know that this evening. Also like to just state a lot of thanks and recognition to Alderman Owens, who's been working on this with all the parties that are involved with trying to find a compromise and a solution that works for public safety, for convenience, for commerce, and all of those things that the city of Germantown is noted for. With that said, we've got several citizens to be heard. Let me read the guidelines quickly, and then we'll begin Citizens to be Heard. Citizens to be Heard is designed to gain input from the public and not for immediate responses by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The intent of this agenda item is to provide the public a platform to be thoughtfully heard and not a forum for dialogue, discussion, or verbal exchange with the board. While the board cannot assure each speaker of a specific or individualized future response, the board will consider the public comments and any supporting materials provided by the speaker. Public comments should be limited to 3 minutes per resident. Speakers are asked to refrain from using names of personnel or names of persons connected with the city, particularly when lodging a complaint. Speakers will not be permitted to engage in gossip, hearsay, make defamatory comments, or use abusive or vulgar language. The presiding board chair shall have sole authority to terminate the remarks of any individual who is disruptive or does not adhere to the board rules and guidelines. So with that being said, our first speaker this evening will be Cindy Shipman. If you could come forward, Ms. Shipman, and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak to the board. Make sure when you get to the podium that the green light is on. It may be green or red. Make sure it's green, and you can adjust the microphone accordingly.
All right. Good evening. My name is Cindy Shipman, and I live at 1937 Whispering Pines Drive. I'd like to thank all the staff and elected officials for your dedication and your efforts to ensure that Germantown remains the best place to live in Tennessee. Soon, I hope, you will have a legacy-building opportunity that I would briefly like to address tonight. I ask that the city purchase the Germantown Country Club property for public use as a park. According to the Parks Master Plan, our number of parkland acres falls short in comparison to Collierville, Franklin, and other similar cities. We need more. The Germantown Country Club property, with its wildlife, towering trees, open grassy areas, and quiet creek, is a beautiful oasis in the center of the city, much like Central Park in New York. Paved walking trails and bridges are already in place, providing easy access for anyone to enjoy the beauty of nature. Accessibility is important for those of us who are not as active as we should be for health and quality of life. My 5-year-old grandson, also a Germantown resident, depends on a wheelchair for mobility. The cart paths would be perfect for him and others with limited abilities to access a natural environment. The addition of the GCC property to our city's parkland would promote a healthy Germantown. What a great place to walk, run, picnic, play pitch and catch, or participate in organized community activities. I ask that you consider the community building aspect of the triple bottom line framework adopted by Germantown years ago as you make your decision regarding the GCC property. What happens if the city doesn't purchase the property? I imagine a developer will. Even though the property is zoned single-family residential, development will likely consist of very large homes on 15,000 square foot lots, effectively zero lot. We already have several such developments. Do we need another? I don't think so. The awe-inspiring beauty of this irreplaceable, centrally located natural resource will be destroyed forever by development. Thousands of mature trees will be cleared to make room for roads, utilities, and concrete slabs. Trees can be replanted, but true replacement takes generations. Many of us here tonight will not live to see it. The charm and property values of nearby neighborhoods will be destroyed as homeowners endure years of construction just a few feet from their back doors. Much of the area serves as water storage or floodplain. If developed, will the floodwaters go into neighborhoods built years ago? If you vote no, you are voting for development and all the negatives that come with it. I ask that you consider environmental stewardship, another aspect of the triple bottom line framework, as you make your decision. The GCC property is a treasure, and its purchase would transform our city. If personal differences are affecting your vote, I ask that you put them aside and support the GCC purchase for the citizens of Germantown. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Shipman. We appreciate you coming forth to the board and speaking. Next speaker is Les Dewey. Mr. Dewey, if you could come forward and state your name and address for the board, and you'll have 3 minutes upon such time to address the board.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Les Dewey, and my wife Judy and I have lived at 8361 West Fair Circle South for the last 10 years. We've lived in Germantown for 25 years and have watched this city grow and prosper thanks to the vision and leadership of a citizen-elected mayor and Board of Aldermen, together with an administration which is second to none. As a result, our city is considered not only one of the best places to live in Tennessee, but one of the best places to live in America. Now you have another decision to make that will have a major impact on our future. The former Germantown Country Club is virtually the only large parcel of land within our city limits with the potential to make Germantown an even better place to live. We don't know for sure now what that land will become if the city purchases it, but we are quite certain about what it will become if we don't. Another subdivision of expensive homes available only to the few who can afford them. This beautiful property needs to belong to the people of Germantown, and if you, our representatives, choose to have the city purchase our property, it will create a legacy for this board that will be long remembered as a board that did the right thing. Those who are against the purchase are arguing that our property taxes may go up if the city acquires the property. And yes, history tells us that we can expect to pay a bit more, excuse me, for the quality of life we enjoy in Germantown. I don't mind that, do you? The naysayers have raised their voices every time our board has had to make a difficult decision such as this one. But I don't hear one of them saying, I wish we hadn't spent the money on all of these parks. And did you know that less than 10 cents of every $1.95 in tax dollars goes toward the parks? 10 years from now, we're going to look back and say, and to think, this beautiful green space almost became nothing more than another subdivision. And don't forget, the people of Germantown have spoken through their Parks and Recreation Commission and their Financial Advisory Commission with unanimous votes to have the city purchase the property. They speak for us. Do the right thing. Vote to purchase the Germantown Country Club property. I'd like to add that there are several representatives in the audience tonight from the subdivisions that surround the Country Club property. Although they chose not to speak, I guess they're shy. They have not been shy in emailing, writing, and calling you. Don't forget those messages when it's time to vote on the Country Club, because we won't forget when it's our time to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Dewey. We read you loud and clear. Folks, the next 15 citizens to be heard are all on the topic of the cell tower, and we have business meetings before the citizens, the people of Germantown. These are not rallies, so please do not applause afterwards. A lot of you have your children here, and that's great that they're here. This is similar to classroom, so please do not clap after each speaker, and I do not want to use my gavel, so please keep that in mind. The first speaker is Seema Patel. If you could come forward, Ms. Patel, to either podium, make sure the green light is on. You can adjust your microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Seema Patel. I live in 2271 West Glen Eldon. I'd like to say, before I get started, thank you so much for your time. We moved here about a year and 4 months ago. And the reason we moved here was because of the best schools that the Dogwood or Germantown has to offer. We moved in without looking at the house, and now we hear about this, the tower being placed right across feet away from a house. And it concerns me, and I'm here to express my concerns regarding the proposed cell phone tower on Dogwood Elementary School. I'm opposed to the cell phone towers for multiple reasons, primarily being the health concerns and effect on my property value. I have 2 children that attend Dogwood Elementary School, and I'm concerned about the radiation effects on my children. One of the studies that was mentioned at the American Cancer Society website, comparing a group of 2,600 children with cancer to a group of similar children without cancer. The study found that those who lived in a town that could have exposed to a higher than average RF radiation from cell phone towers in the previous 5 years had a slightly higher risk of cancer. So this bothers me. In addition to cancer risk, I'm also afraid of learning disabilities and things that will be come with the exposure to the cell phone towers. And the kids are exposed to at least 8 hours a day to the cell phone towers. And if they do after school, before school programs, that can lead to about 10 hours. So I have emailed the school board requesting transfer my children to another school, and at this point, they're not able to accommodate my request because the other schools are full. And I don't know what to do. Some parents are in the same situation as I am in, where they don't have the means to go to a private school, and they don't have the means to go to another school in the district because the schools are full or were only in the zone for Dogwood Elementary. The second concern I have of this is impact on cell phone towers on my property value. According to Environmental Health Trust website, research indicates that over 90% of home buyers and renters are less interested in properties near all cell towers and would pay less for a property in a close vicinity to a cellular antennas. At this point, again, I'm just thinking about relocating to another area, but I'm concerned because I feel like I will have a difficult time selling my house, also concerned about the depreciation of the house. As a mom, as a resident of Germantown, I'm requesting the city to thoroughly examine the available evidence.
That's your time, Ms. Patel, if you could finish your sentence.
Well, thank you. I'm just available evidence regarding the property value, aesthetics, and overall health of the community prior to making a final vote on this matter. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker will be Debbie Brown. If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Once you've stated that, you can adjust the microphone accordingly and make sure the light is green.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Brown. I live at 1765 Enclave Green Cove here in Germantown. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of myself, my husband, Dr. Jeff Brown, my 2 boys that attend Germantown schools, and the other families whose children will be attending Dogwood Elementary this school year. There's recent concern with the potential dangers associated with cancer in proximity to the 5G towers. In the past few weeks, councils and decision makers in the following regions have called for a moratorium on the 5G rollout due to health effects. Those are Brussels, Rome, Florence, Swiss cantons of Vaud, and Geneva. There's also been actions taken by some U.S. city local governments to slow the 5G antenna deployment. Palo Alto, California City Council voted unanimously to approve a resolution and amended wireless ordinance that city staff had proposed. One part of the ordinance specifically disfavored the placement of cell towers in residential zones and near schools. While I understand and agree with the need for improved cell service in Germantown, I believe placing the tower anywhere on school grounds is grossly irresponsible. The aforementioned safety issue is complicated by the fact that the students, the teachers, and the other faculty don't have a choice but to be continually exposed to whatever the tower is radiating. The negative perception on the tower may drive down property values, thereby decreasing tax revenue. An additional and very real concern is that families whose children are forcibly exposed to the 5G exposure by attending schools may seek legal action against the city. This will be costly to taxpayers and certainly offset any gain obtained from leasing the property for a tower. I'm very disappointed in the school board that approved this, and I ask that you, Mayor and Aldermen, please fix this error in judgment and seek an alternate location for the tower. I'd love to say that I appreciate the work that you've done so far, and I trust your judgment and hope that you listen to the citizens and please move this off the campus. I'm providing a copy of this letter for the clerk and ask that this be added directly to the minutes verbatim. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. The next speaker is Patricia Robertson. If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. This podium's okay too. I'm just any way you want. So everyone seems to be going to the same one, so just make sure it's adjusted for your height, and go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, Patricia Robertson. I live at 8933 Farmore Road, which is about a block from Dogwood Elementary. And I have a 3rd grader at Dogwood Elementary, and I have a little one that will start kindergarten next year. So I'd like to state that I oppose the cell tower location near Dogwood Elementary. Why, you ask? I have 3 reasons. A minor one is the aesthetics. Dogwood Elementary has a beautiful open playground on a hill in the back, skirted by a wooded area. My daughter plays there at school, and we go there sometimes on the weekend and fly kites on the hill by the fire station. The cell tower will definitely put a stop to that and ruin the natural beauty of that little area. Second is the fact that cell towers devalue residential property. My husband and I put considerable time and money into improvements of our home, and I've read that a cell tower can devalue the asking price up to 20%. Money out the window. Third is an environmental concern. The National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, requires agencies to consider and disclose the environmental effects of its actions, including by or for the FCC licensees. And an environmental assessment determines the impact of proposed facilities on sensitive species or their habitat. So the little bluebird trail that is in Dogwood Park, y'all have a cute little plaque up there, was approved by the Germantown Parks Department. The Tennessee Bluebird Society, an affiliate of the North American Bluebird Society, maintains this trail. Their mission statement says, and I may not read the whole thing due to time, it's dedicated to promoting bluebird and other native cavity nesting bird conservation, develop public awareness workshops, encourage aid in the development of nest box trails, collecting data and research, and also provide social opportunities for members to share relating to bluebirds. It says currently we are collecting nesting data from around Tennessee to populate our database. So, keywords here are nesting, breeding, bird conservation, and migration pattern. And there's a little map that shows their migration patterns on the Tennessee website. And if you look at the FCC website, you'll see these are big concerns for protection. I have a little bluebird box in my backyard. For 3 years, we've had bluebirds and watched them nest and raise their young. It's been an educational process for me and my children, and I got the idea from the little Dogwood Bluebird Trail. Hopefully, the city and the tower owners will consider the impact of the proposed cell tower on this sensitive little species of bluebird and its habitat at the park and find another location for the tower. I would hate to see our Bluebird Trail disappear due to a cell tower disrupting this precious little park.
That's your time, Ms. Robertson, if you could complete your thought.
I'm done.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming forward this evening. Next speaker will be Katherine Hickey. If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Make sure the light is green, and then you can move your microphone properly.
Okay, my name is Katherine Hickey. I live at 8812 Rock Maple Cove in Germantown, 38139. I'm a Germantown resident. Both of my children attend Dogwood Elementary and have since their kindergarten years. In our 6 years at Dogwood, I've been actively involved as a parent volunteer, a PTO member, and PTO executive board member. I love Dogwood Elementary. I want what is best for its students, teachers, administrators, and surrounding community. I urge you to vote against placing a cell tower within 1,500 feet of the school. I think it is important for us to focus on the mission and vision of Dogwood Elementary, which is, on its website, Dogwood Elementary School is an innovative, challenging, and safe learning environment that empowers each student to grow into a world changer. Placing a cell tower within 1,500 feet of the school or its surrounding playfields prevents Dogwood from fulfilling its mission and vision. Specifically, the cell tower would create an environment that is not safe. 1,500 feet is the internationally recognized precautionary standard for the minimum distance a cell tower should be placed in relation to a school or playground. Any distance closer puts the children at risk of EMF-related symptoms, which studies have shown to include fatigue, weakness, sleep disturbances, headaches, migraines, difficulty concentrating, depression, anxiety, memory loss, visual disruptions, skin problems, heart palpitations, and/or dizziness. This is not safe. Additionally, a cell tower in close proximity to the school would hinder the vision to empower growth. Studies have shown a positive link between exposure to EMF and a decline in cognitive function. In a study just from 2018, children who were exposed to high levels of EMF had lower cognitive scores for verbal expression and comprehension in comparison to those with lower exposure to EMF. Furthermore, children with high exposure to EMF demonstrated a decline in fine and gross motor skills and spatial working memory and attention in school. Results like these certainly do not point to empowering growth in our students. I do understand the desire for a stronger cell phone reception in the geographical area around Dogwood Elementary. As with any decision, I urge you, our leadership, to honestly assess the costs and benefits of this decision and of putting this tower so close to the students and staff at Dogwood Elementary. Once the tower is up, the school board will have no control over the technology that is placed on that tower. That is effectively forfeiting their responsibility to safeguard our children. Are you a board that is willing to enable this? Are you a board that is willing to sacrifice the welfare of our youngest residents? Are you a board that is willing to set the precedent that school grounds are acceptable locations for dangerous equipment, of which we are only just beginning to understand the full impact? Are you a board that is willing to ignore these alarming studies and grave risks for a few more bars on your cell phones?
If you could conclude.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming forward this evening. The next speaker would be Jared Klepto. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Good evening, Jared Klepto. I live at 2170 Cumbernauld Circle West, and I immediately regret not making better notes. I moved to Germantown about a year ago. My wife and I, we have 6 children. The oldest is in 6th grade. I have 2 at Dogwood and 3 that in theory should go there in the next 3 to 5 years. I went to law school here at Memphis. I did my MBA here at Memphis. I love the city of Germantown. I moved here because I wanted to be a part of the community. I wanted my kids to have the opportunity to go to school and experience the school and the safety of Germantown. I've lived here since I was 12, so essentially Germantown is my home. It's the only one I've known. My friend encouraged me to be involved in the community, and I joined a commission. Can I share the commission I'm on? So I'm on the IT commission. So the mayor appointed me to the IT commission. And it's overwhelming at times, it's humbling, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have a voice and to learn from my peers and colleagues. Let me just be clear that I'm against the cell tower at Dogwood Elementary. And this is a difficult position because 6 months ago I walked up to one of the aldermen's spouses while they were campaigning, and I told them, what are they going to do to fix the cell coverage in my house? It's less than ideal. And over the 6 months, I have the advantage, because I'm not in politics, where I'm allowed to say I reserve the right to get smarter. And over the past 6 months, thankful to my wife, thankful to my friends, I know a whole lot more now about the impact, the negative impact that it can have on my children than I did 6 months ago. But as a politician, if you've made a commitment, that's considered flip-flopping. And so you could be at a disadvantage. But I would strongly urge you, I understand that you can't make the decision based off of health concerns because the Telecommunications Act of 1996. The irony is this, the iPhone was invented 10 years later. And so how much did we really know then? But I get it, you can't. You can make the decision based off the impact that it'll have on me, that it'll have on my children, that it'll have on my neighbors and my friends, whether it's actual or perceived. We know of a number of families who've already requested transfers from Dogwood. We know a number of families who have already said they're leaving the Dogwood School District. A number of families who have said, I'm moving. A number of families who have committed to not be a part of Germantown in the future because of the negative consequences of the cell tower. And I would urge you to vote against putting the cell tower on Dogwood because of the negative impacts that it will have on me, my family, my neighbors, and my friends. Thank you.
Mr. Klepto, thank you. Very eloquently stated. We do appreciate it. All of us do. Next speaker, and forgive me, I'm not going to pronounce this correctly, Anil Chandrahari, I think. And please state your name and address for the record so we'll know how to pronounce it correctly.
Yep. My name is Anil Chandrahari. I live in 9489 Johnson Road Extended, Germantown, 38139. Just a background. I lived in Memphis for 14 years. I lived in Lakeland for a while. And I moved to Germantown for better schools when they installed the cell tower in Lakeland. So I'm having a double whammy right now. So, but we moved because we love Germantown, heard a lot about it, great leaders. They put citizens first before they make any decisions. And I also have a fortunate to have experience from two different cultures. I lived in India for 21 years, and I'm living here for another 25 years. So we have experienced bad decisions by leadership in India, and people pay for those consequences, right? So when I moved here, I really have a great appreciation for this country. What people do, they put citizens first, they put their personal agenda out. I know things are different right now, but in Germantown, I hope it's not that. So I know I echo all the sentiments by all the people, a lot of good facts. I'm not going to share all that. What I would say is I'm not for the cell tower in the school, but I need the cell tower in Germantown. I really need that. It keeps dropping all the time. So the second thing is there is conflicting information between pros and cons of having a cell tower in certain areas. So I'm from technology team, so whenever we have unknown facts or we don't have any facts, we always tend to be risk averse in making those decisions. So I request all the leaders here, when you don't have facts for or against, and we are dealing with the future of the country, all these kids, I really look at asking you to look at deeply into, is this the right decision to make? The second thing I want to know is, was there any other sites considered? Because we never heard that there was other sites considered. It's always been the school property. So I would really appreciate if you all can be transparent on any other sites considered and why was it not selected. So with that, please consider that moving the cell tower out of Dogwood property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chandrahari. Next speaker will be Nora Daher. I may have pronounced that incorrectly. I apologize. If you could state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Nora Daher. I'm a double board certified allergy immunologist and internal medicine physician, and I've lived here in Germantown since I came to train here in 2008. By no means do I treat patients. I'm not a hematology oncology physician at this time, but I have in my training taken care of a lot of patients with cancer, and in my training I've had to read a lot of articles, and there is literature to show that there is an increased risk of cancer with 2G and 3G in rat models. And when we, in our training and how we develop new medications to treat patients, we initially start with rat and mouse models, and if it seems to pass, then they go on and do human studies. What you're going to allow, if you allow this to go through, is you are going to make our children and the young staff members that work there the study. And you won't know maybe for 5 or 10 years, but that's where you're going to find out. And I don't think there's any parent here that wants their children to be in that study. Even if 20 years from now it looks like it's safer, if it's not now and we don't know, then it should not go forward. Those were on 2G and 3G. This is on 4G and 5G, which is a much higher radiation. So I am against the cell phone tower being on anywhere on the school campus. It has no business being there because our children do not need to be the study. I sure as heck don't want my children to be a St. Jude statistic, and if that cell phone tower gets put in, then I will be moving my children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daher. The next speaker will be Lauren Wildrick. If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Lauren Wildrick, and I live at 8988 Winding Way. I'm proud to be a Germantown resident, and we moved here because of the schools. We were actually at a private school before, and just heard such great things about the Germantown schools and their reputation and their quality of just students and teachers, and we wanted to give it a try. I believe that relocating the cell phone tower would show that we as a community are maintaining a high respect for our students' health, safety, and standards. I understand that the reason the cell phone tower is being built is the main reason behind it is because of the student safety, and I appreciate that effort. But at the same time, I feel like it's backfiring now that we have all these concerns that are on the horizon. I encourage you to err on the side of caution and not take any chances with our students. I know that we're on the same side and we're working together to protect the students and our schools and their reputation. We ask for your consideration in moving the school tower off, the cell phone tower off of any school property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for coming forward. Next speaker will be Carter Wildrick. If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record. You can move the microphone down.
Hello, my name is Carter Wildrick, and I live at 8988 Winding Way in Germantown. And I'm a 5th grade student at Farmington Elementary. And I've realized that there are plans for a cell tower to be built at Dogwood Elementary School, and I wanted to speak about this. So I know that as an adult, the tower is not going to directly affect you, or negatively affect you, but as a child, it will. And so there are so many people, family and friends that go to Dogwood who I care deeply about that are going to be affected by this tower. And really, if you think about it, the reason that the tower is being built is the same reason that we are opposing it. So what I'm trying to say is to move the cell tower to a different location so that we can all truly benefit. And yeah, pretty much.
Carter, thank you. Let's all clap for Carter, please. We admire your poise and courage to speak in front of an elected body with so many people here. Well done, young man. Thank you. Next speaker will be Sam Walker. If you come forward, Sam. And state your name and address for the record. When you get to the podium, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Hey, my name is Sam Walker. I live at 2020 Spring Hollow Lane. I don't know if I can follow that, but I'll try. My wife, Mindy, my 2 children, Payne and Hendrix, and I moved to Dogwood Grove about 3 years ago. We moved from Oakland, where we lived for about 8 years before coming to Germantown. Our main reason for moving was the amazing school system. Our kids were at St. Francis for about 4 years before deciding to move. and we couldn't be happier with the decision. When people ask us why we left private school, we happily tell them that GMSD is one of the best decisions that we have made as parents, and our Germantown community of friends and activity is priceless. We love Germantown. So this is the reason for our concern with the new 5G cell towers going in at Dogwood. Once I heard the tower was going in on campus and my wife voicing her concern, I did some very light research on these towers. All I did was type in 5G cell tower. That is it, nothing more. I was flooded with stories of health concerns, from slowing the growth of brain function to cancer concerns. Now, I know that you can get these types of stories on any topic, but not just from typing in the name. What has our family really concerned are the facts. These new cell towers operate at a much higher frequency, sometimes 8 times that of 4G. The higher the frequency, the higher level of radiation is emitted. These radio waves move much faster, but they can't travel as far, so that means the towers have to be lower to the ground and much, much closer together in order to operate. This 5G tower is going to be located extremely close to the school where our kids play and learn for hours and hours each day. So while I know that 5G is coming, and there's not a whole lot we can do about that, I wonder what questions we asked about the effects it could have on our children by putting it so close. Do we really need this tower this close to our children? Is there another area that would also make sense? What will this do to the real estate values in Germantown? Many communities across the country have seen drops in value. Is there another solution, one that has actually been tested? So I ask that if you are a parent or just a community member, please do some research and start asking some questions. I know that people in this community and the city officials want the best, and everyone involved feels like whatever side of the fence they're on this, it's in the best interest of our kids. But let's not make this decision without educating ourselves on the risks, and please don't allow our children to play the guinea pig for an untested new technology. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Walker, for coming forward. Next speaker will be Kerry Ali. If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Hello, I'm Kerry Ali. I'm a Germantown resident at 2553 Rooksworth Cove. I live about a third of a mile from the school in Dogwood Park. I currently have 3 children attending Dogwood. One's getting ready to move on to middle school next week. We moved to Germantown almost 7 years ago for the schools, like many of my friends here. I love our school family. I love Dogwood. I have the great privilege of serving our PTO board at Dogwood as the new parent liaison. And I have the awesome opportunity to welcome our new kindergarten families, our new families that have moved to Germantown and are touring the schools. I'd be happy to give you guys a tour and show off our school. I love to show off our school. So this year I had the special privilege of welcoming our families from Farmington that were rezoned to Dogwood. It's always my joy to welcome new families into our Dogwood Dolphin family, but I'm aware now that this proposed cell tower is causing many families to choose not to be at Dogwood. And honestly, it hurts to see a school that we love become the center of such controversy. This cell tower is not even on our property yet, is what's really concerning. This tower, anybody that happens to think that this tower will just be fine, everything will be okay, we don't need to worry about it, it's not a big deal, well, that is already proving to be incorrect. It's already beginning to tear apart our sweet Dogwood family. And I ask you please to move this tower to a location, like Ms. Hickey spoke of, at least 1,500 feet away from where our children play and learn, and not on a school property. I'd ask you to please do your part to help preserve our Dogwood family and the legacy of greatness that it's known for, and the reason that families are in Germantown in the Dogwood area. And I will continue to do my part to show off our fantastic school, the faculty, the administration, and the families that we have there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alley. We appreciate your comments this evening. Next speaker will be Wes Talbert. If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
My name is Wes Talbert. My wife, 2 sons, and I reside at 9081 Baynard Loop North, Germantown, Tennessee, 38139. Germantown has a reputation as a community that puts the safety of its citizens and the education of its children first. Our taxes reflect this, and so does the cost to buy or build a home in Germantown. In late 2016, my wife and I initiated a contract to build a new home here, despite Germantown having the highest cost per square foot to build anywhere in the metro area. We selected Germantown over Collierville and other metro areas, other suburbs, because we believed in the leadership of this city, the quality of the police force, the quality of the school system. We closed on the home in the summer of 2017, moved our children from private education to the public school system here, because once again, we believed in this school system, we believed in this leadership. Fast forward to April 25th of 2019, when I learned that at least 2 of the leaders before us this evening received campaign contributions in 2018 from a handful of people in key leadership roles at Tower Ventures, $5,000 to one and $3,000 to another. Those are just what I've uncovered so far. Further, the current financial controller at Tower Ventures sits on both the Financial Advisory Committee and the Industrial Development Board of Germantown City Government. As a taxpayer in Germantown, I'm angry. Angry doesn't even really begin to describe it, but we'll just call it angry. First, I'm angry that I must now invest in private school because I can't send my kids to Dogwood Elementary because a tower is going to be built there. Second, I'm angry that our newly built home that's zoned to Dogwood is going to be less attractive in resale value for anyone who might have a child in kindergarten through the 5th grade, knowing they would be zoned there and that that tower will sit there. Third, I'm angry at the thought that some of our leaders may, and I say may because I'm not accusing anybody of anything, have been influenced by campaign contributions in 2018. My commitment to the elected leaders before us tonight is simply this. There are hundreds of parents that are willing to fund and operate a sustained, multi-year social media campaign against the re-election of any official here tonight who allows the tower to be placed within 1,500 feet of any public school in the Germantown Municipal School District. I hope and pray you will choose the health of our children above all else. But if you do not, rest assured you will not retain your seat on city government in the next election cycle. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Talbert, for coming forward and speaking to the board this evening. The next speaker will be Beth Warren. Ms. Warren, if you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Hi, I'm Beth Warren. I live at 2489 Netherhall Drive in Germantown. Like so many people have already said, I'm a parent at Dogwood, and I absolutely love it. It's been a wonderful environment, and I have nothing but love for that school. And I know many people sitting up here have connections to Dogwood Elementary also. Like many people, when I first heard about this tower, I just assumed that someone had really looked into it and I didn't need to worry about it. And then I saw how close it was going to be to our school, and I started looking into it, and I was shocked to find out about the health effects that could be associated with it. And like many parents, I've heard up to 50 parents have already requested transfers from Dogwood for next year. I can't put my kid in a school with a cell tower knowing that I could be sitting at St. Jude in 10 years wondering why I allowed myself to do that. So I'll have to figure out alternative education for my child if this tower gets built. And I don't want to. We walk to Dogwood. We love Dogwood. I want to stay there. And I just want to reiterate, I really appreciate you guys looking for a solution, and I am so appreciative that you've gone back to the drawing board and tried to find a better location, but I don't think 250 feet away from the school is going to cut it. I think it needs to be 1,500, or I've read in some places 1,200 is a considered minimum for radiation. There's been a study in Germany where your cancer risk quadrupled if you were within 1,200 feet of a tower, especially for younger people, which children are younger people, and especially for women, especially women of childbearing age, which a lot of teachers are. It's just too scary to even consider. And as one of the other commenters said, if you don't know the possibilities, you need to err on the side of caution. And I just appreciate y'all so much because I know y'all care, and I know many of you have real reasons to care about Dogwood, and I really appreciate that. It really does drive people moving into Germantown for our schools. And if they're gonna not want to buy my house because it's in the Dogwood district. That's really sad that I invested there. So I hope that everyone's going to do the right thing, and you guys have the power to block this. The school board voted for it already, but you can block it. It's going to have to come through you for final approval, so please block the cell phone tower. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. We appreciate your comments this evening. Next speaker will be Lisa Parker. Ms. Parker, if you could come forward and state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak to the board.
Thank you, Board. My name is Lisa Parker, 1761 Leeds Cove. I guess I'm going to be the unpopular one tonight because I'm speaking in favor of the school board. Cell phones first became widely available in the United States in the 1990s, and their use has increased dramatically. Today, I'm sure everyone in this chamber is carrying his or her own cell phone. We use these phones to call, text, find our way, listen to music, monitor our kids, conduct business, check their weather, check our time, Google information, which a lot of that has been done, order prescriptions, schedule doctor's appointments, order groceries, watch movies, and 1,000 other uses. Why do we need this cell tower? Well, we identified this area of the city that has poor cell service. Dogwood School with its cinder block walls has terrible cell service. The only landlines in the schools are located in the office, the main entrance, the resource officer's desk, lounge, and conference room. In case of a real emergency or an active shooter, a cell phone 911 call can spare precious minutes to save a student, a teacher, or a staff member. The community surrounding the school is in desperate need of better cell service also. My son, who lives behind the school, wasn't able to call 911 for his wife because he does not have cell service in his home. He had to leave her to walk outside to make the call. 77% of Germantown does not have a landline. Some people have expressed concern that living, working, or going to school near a phone tower might increase the risk of cancer. At this time, there's very little evidence to support this idea, and in theory, there are some important points that would argue against cellular towers being able to cause cancer. Now, I'm not going to argue all the facts and everything that has been thrown to you tonight, but the expert agencies do say, through the American Cancer Society, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, the National Toxicology Program, the TNP, which she spoke about the rats, who were dosed with tons more radiology than we could ever possibly want to in our lifetime, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency have not classified cell towers specifically as to their cancer-causing potential. The SEC states there is no reason to believe that towers could constitute a potential health hazard to nearby residents or students. The IARC also noted, and this is quite interesting, that exposure to the brain from RF fields from cell phone base stations is less than 1/100th the exposure to the brain from mobile devices such as cell phones. So with this opinion, maybe we should start worrying about our use of cell phones continuously.
Ms. Parker, that's your time, and you're at a stopping point too, so thank you for your comments this evening.
Thank you.
We appreciate it very much. Next speaker this evening will be the final speaker on this, or the final speaker for citizens to be heard, Nick Pay. If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, and after you do that, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Clerk.
My name is Nick Pay. Me and my wife, Hallie, who's sitting out there, have 3 children. We live at 9545 Hedgeview Lane. We have been happy Germantown residents since 2010, moving here from Utah for a job opportunity. We love Germantown, and we tell everyone how great our city is. We built a new home in 2013 on one of the few remaining lots in the Grove Park neighborhood, as we felt doing so ensured we would be in great school zones for the future. I've served on the board for the Germantown Football League for several years. My wife has been very active in volunteering at Farmington Elementary for the past 9 years, and I also currently serve in a leadership position for my church where the Germantown residents of our faith attend. After the past 9 years at Farmington, with my older children, we've had a very great experience, but our neighborhood was just recently rezoned for Dogwood, and we were told that we could not stay or apply for a transfer at Farmington. This was upsetting to us, but we were mostly okay with it because we have always heard good things about Dogwood, and we know how good the GMSD schools are. However, after just recently learning that the city and the school district will be building a 5G cell phone tower on the property at Dogwood Elementary, my family has become very unsettled and not happy about this news. Now, I am sure, or at least hope, you have done all your studies, and I'm sure there are many justifiable reasons for wanting a cell phone tower in that area, but as a resident and concerned parent, this is not okay for us. I just don't believe it can be good for hundreds of young kids with developing minds to sit under or be that close to a 5G cell phone tower for 7 hours a day. Have you guys concluded that it's going to be safe for your child to sit under a cell phone tower for 7 hours a day? Maybe no harm will come from it, but why chance it by placing this tower so close to young children? Now, I'm not naive to not think that these towers are not going to be all over the place, and I know that having good cell phone service is very positive for a city, not only for safety reasons, but also for desirability and living quality. I was shocked, however, that our city and school leaders, or whoever made the decision, would conclude on locating the placement for this cell service so close to an elementary school. If science is inconclusive on the health effects of nearby exposure to cell towers, why not pick a different location, or at least not choose our elementary schools for its location? This is very confusing to me, but what do I know? I know cell service in that area is not good, but how many Dogwood parents were surveyed, asked, or even aware that a cell phone tower was being proposed right next to their elementary school? I was not aware of it until recently, but perhaps maybe I need to pay more attention to these matters. It seems to me through numerous conversations with residents that residents in that area were screaming loudly for cell service. However, parents of current and potential Dogwood students were not aware of this issue in enough time to scream back once the cell phone tower was located, once the location was picked and announced. Again, this could be pure speculation on my part, but this is the feel that I get. I don't think hundreds of parents of elementary school kids would say yes to this location if they were given the chance ahead of time to vote or have their influence. Now, we realize we are only one family and probably have zero to little influence.
That's your time, sir. Just conclude your remarks.
Okay, I was just going to conclude with that our children is going to be attending a private school if this cell phone tower goes up on the elementary school grounds. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That concludes citizens to be heard for this evening. I would like to compliment all those that spoke this evening, those in attendance this evening as well, for conducting yourself with true decorum and grace. I know this is very passionate for all of you who spoke tonight, and I do appreciate you adhering to our guidelines. No one violated any of those, and there was no clapping. So at this time, will everyone clap? Is that all right? We continue with our work this evening. I'm going to propose we take, without objection, a quick 3-minute recess. We have about 2 more hours left in our meeting. You are welcome to stay. We're not trying to run anyone off from seeing the people's work. There will be no cell tower mentioned on the rest of this agenda this evening, so if you'd like to take your leave, you've got 3 minutes. We'll reconvene at about 7:01. Thank you.
You can go home now.
Okay, I wanted to say hi. I'm John Shoemaker.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, too.
Doing all right?
It's been a long time.
It has been.
Years anyway.
Yeah.
What are you doing here today?
I'm
Thank you. I appreciate
hopefully
it.
going to be appointed to the Education Foundation.
I did see that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, good. Excellent. Oh, wonderful. Good stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent stuff.
That's what I remember. Yeah. Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you.
People got away from you good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly.
How are you? I'm great. Good to see you. All the rain we've had here lately, I feel like we missed you. That's, oh my gosh, that's seeing it.
How long is he? I know he does 6 months. Is it 6 month stints?
So when is he due to be back? About the middle of July.
If I could have your attention, please. I'd like to call this meeting back into order and conclude our recess. If you could find your seats at this particular time, if you'd like to stay for the meeting, we certainly welcome you. We've got item 7, special recognition, is on the agenda next. We have 4 proclamations that will be read into the record this evening. I have asked our board to assist me so that I don't have to drink a 4th bottle of water this evening. So the first one will be a proclamation representing National Kids to Parks Day. Alderman Liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission, Vice Mayor Mary Ann Gibson, will present that proclamation. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a proclamation from the National Park Trust, Kids to Parks Day. Whereas May 18th, 2019 is the 9th Kids to Parks Day, organized and launched by the National Park Trust, held annually on the 3rd Saturday of May, and whereas Kids to Parks Day empowers kids and encourages families to get outdoors and visit America's parks, and whereas it is important to introduce a new generation to our national, state, and community parks, and whereas Kids to Parks Day is open to all children and adults across the country to encourage a large and diverse group of participants. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and outdoors, and now, therefore, I, Mary Ann Gibson, Vice Mayor of the City of Germantown, do hereby proclaim Germantown's participation in Kids to Parks Day by urging residents of our city to make time on May 18th, 2019 to take the children in their lives to a neighborhood, state, or national park.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. I would speak on behalf of our board and our Parks Director with 29 parks within a half mile of virtually every home in Germantown. We encourage all in attendance this evening and all within earshot to take your children to one of our fine parks and to recreate. Our next proclamation will be honoring law enforcement. I've asked Alderman Scott Sanders, our liaison to the Public Education and Safety Commission, to present this proclamation. Alderman Sanders.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a proclamation for Police Week. Whereas there are more than 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Germantown Police Department. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, more than 2,100 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., whereas 371 new names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial this spring, including 158 officers killed in 2018 and 2013 officers killed in previous years. Whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 31st Annual Candlelight Vigil on the evening of May 13th, 2019. Whereas May 15th is dedicated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags should be flown at half-staff. Now, therefore, I, Scott Sanders, Alderman for the City of Germantown, Tennessee, do proclaim the week of May 12th through 18th, 2019, as Police Week in the City of Germantown, and urge all citizens to recognize National Police Week 2019 and to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy.
For our officers in attendance this evening, we salute you. Chief, thank you. On behalf of your over 100 commissioned officers, your reserves, your dispatchers, and jailers, we do appreciate your service to our community. Thank you very much. Our next proclamation this evening will be presented by Alderman Rocky Yonda. Alderman Yonda is the Alderman Liaison to the Environmental Commission, which is closely affiliated with our Public Works Division. He has a proclamation to read into the record for Public Works Week. Alderman Yonda.
Thank you, Mayor, for this honor. Whereas public infrastructure, facilities, and services are an integral part of our everyday lives of the citizens of Germantown, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on the efficient and effective operation of our Public Works Division and its responsibilities for water, sewers, streets, drainage, grounds, and animal control, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of such facilities and services relies on the efforts and expertise of those who design, build, operate, and maintain the animal shelter, transportation, water supply, sewage, drainage systems, and public grounds. And whereas it is in the public interest for citizens and civic leaders to gain knowledge and maintain a progressive interest in the public works and the infrastructure needs and programs of our city. Now therefore I, Rocky Yonda, Alderman for the City of Germantown, do hereby proclaim May 19th to the 25th, 2019 as Public Works Week in the City of Germantown and call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the delivery of public works services in our city's infrastructure and to recognize the contributions that public works personnel make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and the quality of life. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And for our men and ladies and gentlemen that wear the uniform, like our first responders, Bo Mills, if you could stand and be recognized, thank you for your service. Our last proclamation for this evening is on behalf of the Muscular Dystrophy Association. I would ask the following people in attendance to come forward and just make your way across the front of the council chambers. And I will read the proclamation into the record here in a moment. Laura Luttrick, the Executive Director for the Greater Memphis Area Muscular Dystrophy Association. Hannah Warren, MDA Ambassador and Germantown resident. Sabrina Warren, Hannah's mom. Scott Cooper, Germantown Fire Department and President of the Germantown Firefighters Association. Mike Hobson, GFD, Germantown Fire Department, and member of the Germantown Firefighters Association, helping to coordinate the boot drive. Other members of Germantown Fire Department who are here in attendance: Joe Bagwell, Wes Jones, Jeff Beeman, and Chief. And I think if you have others that I missed this evening, if they could come forward as well. I know you have almost the entire department that participates in this particular effort and has for years. We are greatly appreciative of that. In a moment, I'll come down and present. Yeah, if you could come forward and just move across the aisle. I know a couple folks want to speak in a moment. I'm going to read the proclamation into the record, and then I'll present you with the proclamation as well. Whereas muscular dystrophy refers to a group of more than 40 neuromuscular diseases that cause generalized weakness and muscle wasting, and whereas the Muscular Dystrophy Association is a dedicated partnership of scientists and citizens aimed at conquering neuromuscular diseases, and the MDA is one of the world's leading national health agencies, with 75% of every dollar raised fostering research, patient care, and education. And whereas the MDA serves over 2,000 families in the state of Tennessee, with some in the Germantown community at no charge. And whereas since 1954, firefighters have supported MDA with unwavering drive and relentless action. Thousands of firefighters have participated in the Fill the Boot drive across America, raising to date more than $630 million. And whereas members of the Germantown Fire Department and Germantown Firefighters Union Local 3858 selflessly donate their time and energy in joining the battle against muscular dystrophy and related life-threatening diseases that severely limit muscle strength and mobility by filling the boot for the MDA. And whereas the City of Germantown and the Germantown Fire Department, along with the Germantown Firefighters Local 358, shall sponsor the Fill the Boot campaign to continue supporting the efforts of the MDA. Now, therefore, I, Mike Palazzolo, Mayor of the City of Germantown, Tennessee, do hereby recognize May, the entire month, May of 2019, as MDA Fill the Boot Month in the City of Germantown, and encourage everyone to help fight muscular dystrophy.
And Mayor, as folks come forward to speak, I just wanted to speak personally. I've had family members, past and present, that suffer from this, and you fill a void for them. And so we thank you for all of your efforts. Thank you.
And I do know someone wanted to speak, so please take your time, and you have the podium. Make sure the green light is on.
Hello, my name is Hannah Warren. I am 19 years old, a Germantown resident since 2003, and currently a part-time student at the University of Memphis. In 2014, I was diagnosed with a form of muscular dystrophy called myotonic dystrophy type 1. It may not look like I have a muscle disease, but that is not true. Right now, my disease affects my internal muscles, and especially my eye, GI, and breathing muscles the most, which has resulted in 3 hospitalizations due to breathing difficulties. Thank you, Mayor Palazzolo and Mr. Lawton, for issuing this proclamation. Thank you for your support, Vice Mayor Gibson, Alderman Yonda, Alderman Massey, Alderman Owens, and Alderman Sanders. Thank you, Chief Selberg, the members of the Germantown Fire Department, Germantown Firefighters Association, and especially Scott Cooper and Mike Hobson for bringing Fill the Boot back to Germantown and for organizing this year's campaign. And thank you to the citizens of Germantown who will donate to Fill the Boot. All money collected through Fill the Boot benefits local MDA families through the MDA clinic at Le Bonheur, where I go, as well as the adult MDA clinic at Wesley Neurology near the Agri Center. Money collected from Fill the Boot also goes towards MDA summer camps and research, which is important to me because the disease I have currently has no cure. I am looking forward to being a part of the Germantown Fill the Boot campaign. Everyone, please donate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Germantown Fire. We are so proud of you. You do such a great job every day for us, protecting and serving, and you do so for so many people in the region, especially for this particular effort. Now, we're not going to recess, but we're going to take a little pause. If you would like to leave now, all the special recognition folks that we read earlier, this would be a good time for you to be able to take an exit. And we will move on with Alderman Liaison Reports, item 8 on the agenda. For the sake of time, Alderman, I would ask that you adhere to the, we're not going to, well, are we going to, are you going to put the shot clock on, Mr. Heisman? If we could go in rapid fire, because we have a lengthy agenda. We go position 1 through 5. Alderman Sanders.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to report that the Public Safety Education Commission had a very successful drug take-back, collecting 417 pounds of unused, unwanted medication from our Germantown residents. I also want to report that we offered a child safety seat inspection to our residents last Saturday at the Touch a Truck event. And a reminder for our residents that Safety City, the safety camp for children 5 and 6-year-olds, will be held June 10th through 14th, and the registration deadline is tomorrow, so check the city's website for that if you're still interested. The Beautification Commission met last week to finalize plans to use end-of-the-year funding to make improvements at some of our medians and right-of-ways by replacing some of our dead shrubbery and flowers in an effort to improve the look as citizens and visitors enter our city along Wolf River Boulevard and Hacks Cross Road. Additional plantings will be at the GPAC and the Athletic Club entrance on Exeter Road, which will receive some attention as well. I want to remind the public the commission will not meet during the months of June and July. The Senior Commission will not meet this week, and the Technology Commission meets next week to continue to look at our internet service available to our residents in Germantown from our second provider. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Very concise and to the point. We appreciate it. Vice Mayor Gibson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Neighborhood Preservation Commission just completed their successful tour of remodeled homes with perfect weather to showcase these beautifully renovated homes. Big thanks to Dory Sims, chairman of the commission, as well as Kathy Phillips, who was the chair for the entire event. The entire commission, for their tireless efforts hosting the tour, countless hours spent in preparation and then fulfilling that mission. Michelle McDonald was our staff liaison, as well as Joe Nunes. But most of all, we need to thank those homeowners who encouraged other residents to upgrade and enhance their homes and improve their neighborhoods. Those were Brian and Becky Menyas, Stuart and Wendy Holmes, Dr. James Bowe and Petra Adams, John and Melanie Thompson. Thank you for that. The Board of Zoning Appeals will not meet in May as there are no complete applications to consider. Both the Education Commission and the Library Board are encouraging Germantown residents that would be interested in serving on those commissions or board that they can apply online up until June 7th on the city's website. As far as the library board, the library is going to be hosting a how-to festival on May 18th from 1 till 4, where you can come and learn about beekeeping, quilting, and woodworking. Then I'd like to finish with a thank you to Parks and Recreation as far as the events at the Touch a Truck, Parks and Rec, Public Works, Public Safety, and the library all came forward on a rainy, yucky day to see toddlers get very excited about lots of equipment, and what a great day that was. The Germantown Women's Club actually provided concessions at that popular event, and all proceeds benefited the Germantown Community Library. The Parks and Rec Commission will meet next Thursday, May 24th at 5:30, where they'll be establishing several work sessions during the summer to update park rules. Those work sessions will be posted on the city's website, and like all commission meetings, are open to the public. That's my report, sir.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Alderman Owens.
Thank you, Mayor. Planning Commission met on the 7th of this month, first Tuesday, and we reviewed the site plan for the Learning Experience Child Care Center, which is down in Forest Hill Heights. We also recommended approval to update our subdivision regulations to correspond with the future fire code updates that are coming. Also, the Bicycle Pedestrian Task Force Commission, met on April 8th, May 8th, and unfortunately I was unable to attend. We had the budget work session. I know Sherry Hicks is in the audience. She might be able to give us a quick, no, I won't ask her to do that, but she was in attendance, I know. And also the Design Review Commission will not meet at the end of this month, fourth Tuesday of this month, because of a lack of business.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Yonda.
I'm going to abstain in the 4 commissions that I have, so we can get going. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you doing that, Alderman Yonda, and I will not give a report from the mayor's office this evening. That takes us to item number 9 on the agenda this evening, the preliminary agenda. The preliminary agenda was thoroughly reviewed by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen individually and in our meeting during executive session at 5:30. All items were reviewed and presented by the city administration, and questions were asked on multiple items. Just to go over for the public, those items include item 9A, amendment Germantown Greenway conveyance, item 9B, appointment Senior Citizen Advisory Commission, item C, appointments Germantown Education Foundation, item D, budget adjustment Dogwood Grove sidewalk installation, item E, contract CO Franklin Park Tennis Park lighting, item F, contract extension host web-based recreation management software. Item G, donation to the police department. Item H, grant for the Big Read. Item I, reimbursement for the fire department, Tennessee Task Force 1. Item J, reimbursement payment number 3, GMSD Riverdale Boiler Chiller renovation project. Item K, purchase court software, annual subscription fees. Item L, purchase security cameras. And finally, item M, sports provider agreement, Germantown Football League. Is there a motion to to approve the preliminary agenda as presented to the public.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens,
Why, yes.
Alderman Yonda,
Excuse me. Yes.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Preliminary agenda carries. Board, I will caution you, there's no fun at these meetings, so please, no laughing down there. That concludes item 9, and that was adopted and accepted. The regular agenda is now the next portion of the agenda, and it takes us to item 10, contract Germantown Athletic Club renovations, Phase 4. Mr. Rogers.
Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Board. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider approval of a construction contract with Barnes & Brower Incorporated in the amount of $1,412,493 for the construction of Phase 4 of the Germantown Athletic Club's renovation project. Built in 1990, the Germantown Athletic Club is a major focal point in Germantown with over 12,000 resident and non-resident members. While there have been smaller renovations throughout the past 25 years that have enhanced the club, the space utilization and social needs remain deficient as the facility continued to grow both in programming and membership. In February of 2012, a conceptual master plan was developed and outlined improvements to the club that would address these deficiencies and help make the Germantown Athletic Club a health and fitness leader in the Mid-South. Through the first 3 phases of renovations so far, the club has reinvested $4.9 million of club-generated dollars back into the facility. Phase 4 work consists of a mezzanine at entry level where the old staircase was removed. The new space will house a club cafe and a sitting area with views outside. Below the new mezzanine will be a designated family gaming space similar to what is currently there. Also included is a reconfiguration of the front entryway and check-in desk to allow for better controls as well as designated ingress and egress to help member traffic flow through peak usage times. The project was publicly advertised for construction on April 11, 2019. 4 contractors attended the pre-bid meeting on April 17th, and 3 qualified bids were received on May 2nd, 2019, with Barnes & Brower in submitting the lowest base bid in the amount of $668,900. The 6 ad alternates included in Phase 4 would complete the scope of work the master plan initially set out in 2012 to address. Due to the ability to do the work of the alternates concurrently with the base bid, as well as potential cost savings when doing alternates as part of a larger scale project, staff is also recommending the selection of alternate number 1, which is the renovation of the lower men's and women's bathrooms at a cost of $56,900. Alternate number 2, which is the renovation and reconfiguration of men's and women's locker room off the weight floor of $331,000 or $346. Alternate number 3, a new entry facade, lighting, and guardrail at a cost of $83,825. Alternate number 4, elevator modernization at a cost of $75,739. Alternate number 5, a much-needed cycle room HVAC improvements at the cost of $176,826. And alternate number 6, which is fire alarm and panel upgrades not included in the base bid at a cost of $18,957. Acceptance of the base bid and all alternates will bring the total contract award to $1,412,493 and would complete the scope of work the master plan initially set out in 2012. A year-end budget adjustment from the athletic club reserves would be used to fund the alternates mentioned. This project supports Forward 2030 in the following ways. City Services and Finance Strategic Objective number 1, action item number 2, states to reduce the dependency on enterprise funds of enterprise funds on the general fund, and City Services and Finance Strategic Objective number 2, which is the City of Germantown is responsible for significant physical assets. The city believes that stewardship of city assets is essential to deliver high-quality service to its customers consistently as well as effectively. And I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
If I could add one thing, Mayor.
Yes.
That budget adjustment Mr. Rogers is talking about is item number 13 in your agenda book. It's actually budget adjustment number 19-100, which will address that Phase 4 work that Mr. Rogers described. And just to reiterate, those dollars to do those various alternatives 1 through 6 will be coming from retained earnings within the Germantown Athletic Club Enterprise Fund, not tax dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. We do appreciate when you provide the supporting objectives from the Germantown Forward 2030 plan as well. Before accepting a motion, I would just remind the board that during discussion and also questions, if you could address that through the chair. Also, if you have any amendments this evening, and now that we're in budget season, if those could be brought forward in writing and presented to the clerk and to your colleagues, and always to remain germane to the agenda item as well. Is there a motion to approve a construction contract with Barnes & Brower Incorporated in the amount of $668,900 for the base bid and alternates 1 through 6 in the amount of $743,593 for a contract total of $1,412,493.00 for the construction of Phase 4 of the Germantown Athletic Club's renovation project? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
There's a motion by Alderman Yonda, seconded by Alderman Sanders. Discussion? Yes, you have the floor, if you wish to.
Can you repeat what he talked about earlier?
Was it a little bit slow for you?
Which part?
Man, I got enough information here. I'm a yes.
Well, thank you. Does that conclude your remarks?
That concludes my remarks.
Okay. Alderman Sanders?
I just want to congratulate Mr. Rogers for a great, long process. By the time you get this work done, it'll be 8 years. Nothing came from the general fund. You've worked very hard to improve the process there at the athletic club and to utilize the funds of the members and improve the facility for those that use it. I've taken a tour of it. I'm not a member there, but I am impressed with the work you've done. It is a class project, and I just appreciate your hard work in doing that for the citizens.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Owens.
Well, thank you, Alderman Sanders. You stole my lines exactly, but I think we congratulate and we thank our staff a lot of times, whether it be police, public works, fire, and Phil, you are to be congratulated. This is just tremendous work that you've done over these, as Alderman Sanders said, 8 years, to have all this done with GPAC, with the Germantown Athletic Club earnings is great, and not using the general fund dollars. So just thanks to you and your staff, if you would pass that along from us. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yep. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Sanders?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
The motion is adopted and approved. We go to item number 11 on the agenda, supplement number 6, Germantown Athletic Club renovations, Phase 4, CEI.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. You could hear me again. The purpose of this agenda item is to approve supplement number 6 in the amount of $29,500 for the professional service agreement with Fleming and Associates Architects for contract administration and construction inspection that are essential for the Phase 4 improvements of the Germantown Athletic Club, increasing the contract amount from $385,500 to $415,000. Contract administration and construction inspection activities include review of contractor submittals and shop drawings, response to contractors' request for information, regular site visits to ensure the project is being built according to plans and specifications, biweekly progress meetings with the owner, architect, and contractor to review progress, review of pay applications, review of contractors' as-built drawings, and coordination with the city staff during project closeout. The $29,500 fee proposed for supplement number 6 brings the total cost of the professional services contract for the project to $415,000, which is 6.6% of the actual total construction cost and is well within the customary fee for this size project. This also supports Forward 2030 in the following ways: of City Services and Finance Strategic Objective number 1 and Strategic Objective number 2, as mentioned earlier. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. We appreciate your presentation. Is there a motion to approve supplement number 6 in the amount of $29,500 to the professional services agreement with Fleming Architects for the contract administration and construction inspection that are essential for Phase 4 improvements to the Germantown Athletic Club, increasing the contract amount from $385,500 to $415,000. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
There's a motion by Alderman Yonda and a second by Alderman Sanders. Discussion? Alderman Yonda?
Again, thank you so much for all you've done to bring this forward to us. Looking forward to seeing it. Thank you for the staff that helped you do it, and appreciate it very much.
Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Sanders.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Alderman Owens.
Yes.
Alderman Yonda.
Yes.
The motion is approved. We've got Chill and Grill this Saturday from 11 to 1. If you'd like to come and participate, have your city administrator, your athletic club director, your chairman, and Alderman Yonda flipping burgers and dogs for you. You will, I wrap them up. I'm not on the grill. They don't let me have a spatula. Also, Mr. Rogers, I'll let you know you got a prospect. I know you wouldn't. You've already made that mental note. Item 12 on the agenda this evening, ordinance number 2019-1, ordinance to adopt fiscal year 2020 budget, first reading. Mr. Lawton.
I'll have the staff come up to the table. And Mr. Manuel, there's a spot for you too. Mayor, the city's charter and Mayor and Board, the city's charter requires that at least 45 days before the beginning of the fiscal year, or July 1 of this year, that the city administrator shall prepare and submit to the board a budget for the ensuing fiscal year and a message that accompanies that. 2 weeks ago, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen was provided a copy of this document, which is the proposed fiscal year budget for FY20. And last Wednesday, we had a work session with the aldermen to go through about a 45-minute presentation to go through the budget in its entirety and to try to answer any questions. So the board has had the budget for some time, but we're now in the three-reading process of adopting the budget document. I am pleased to present to you tonight on first reading the FY20 annual operating budget and capital improvement plan for the city of Germantown. These spending plans reflects our commitment to provide quality service and amenities to our residents, addressing the educational needs of the community while preserving our organization's long-term history of financial sustainability and viability. As we manage the resources entrusted to us by our residents, we see positive signs of improvement to our 5-year financial forecast, particularly in the area of state sales tax and local sales tax. And although the cost of delivering services continues to challenge us, we will continue to look for ways to improve core services and the quality standards our residents have come to expect from the city of Germantown. This balanced and strategic approach results in a spending plan that adapts to changing needs of our community without compromising our financial future, primarily because we do a long-range 5-year financial plan. I'm also happy to report that there is no tax increase in the proposed budget before you on first reading. Setting long-term priorities for the city is one of the most important responsibilities of Germantown elected officials. And in 2016, you reaffirmed that commitment by adopting the Germantown Forward 2030 plan. This policy document sets forth the direction for the organization, creates alignment between policy and implementation, and acts as a touchstone for making financial and operational decisions to achieve community expectations. In addition, the City of Germantown administration and all our departments, we are guided by a set of financial policies adopted by ordinance that provide guidance and policy direction on our budget process, debt management, capital spending, and the use of our reserves. Over the past several months, staff has worked very closely and extensively with the city's Financial Advisory Commission based upon the budget calendar established by this body. The Financial Advisory Commission discussed each of the city's governmental funds, including capital, enterprise fund, special revenue fund, and of course the largest, the general fund. After each presentation, a vote was taken to move the budget process forward for final approval by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. During a public hearing, if scheduled by this body tonight, the chairman of the Financial Advisory Commission will present an overview and recommendation of the FY20 budget and the work that was completed by the Financial Advisory Commission. In addition to the work of the Financial Advisory Commission, staff has provided the Board of Mayor and Aldermen with information, briefings, and work sessions regarding significant policy issues related to the capital improvement budget, the budget, and the capital needs of the Germantown Municipal School District. The recommended budget includes appropriate funding to address these demands and service areas in a thoughtful and deliberate manner without disrupting existing services or placing additional strain on the general fund. Each year, as part of the budget process, department heads engage with their employees to discuss trends options and opportunities for addressing citizen needs. Department heads align the business plans, their individual business plans, with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen's policy agenda, and then submit associated budget requests to achieve desired performance outcomes. The budget requests are responsible, and overall, the general fund represents an 8% increase over the budget for the current fiscal year. The department heads, as well as the budget and performance team, are here and available to answer any questions that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen may have regarding their specific areas of operation. In summary, Mayor and Board, the proposed budget for FY19 totals $174,614,434. The general fund operating budget totals $58,933,129, and as I'd mentioned, represents an 8% increase over the budget for FY19. We have several enterprise funds, and collectively the enterprise funds, including utilities, the Germantown Athletic Club, stormwater, the Great Hall, and the sanitation fund, total $19,253,740. The special revenue funds, another revenue category and fund category for the city, totals $68,671,790, of which the Germantown Municipal School District is the largest component as a special revenue fund at $60,870,000. And finally, the city's capital improvements budget for FY20 totals $22,494,755. The motion before the board this evening is to approve the budget on first reading and to set June 10th as the public hearing date. I'm available for any questions that the board may have on any aspect of the budget, in addition to our budget and performance team seated around the table, and as I'd mentioned, our department heads as well. And I'd also like to recognize Ms. Julie Klein, who is a member of our financial advisories in attendance this evening, and as is Brian Ulicki. Did I miss anybody else from the FAC? Thank you both for being here. They put a lot of hours, Mayor, into review of the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Just remind the board this is the first of 3 readings. Is there a motion to approve on first reading ordinance 2019-1 establishing the FY20 proposed budget and to set Monday, June 10th, 2019 for the second reading and public hearing? There's a motion by Alderman Yonda. Is there a second?
Second.
So motion and a second by Vice Mayor Gibson. Discussion. Alderman Yonda, you have the floor for the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I have an amendment to the budget on our first reading. I move to amend the budget on our first reading to restore funding for the Oak Lawn Garden Phase 1 Parks project in the amount of $300,000 and restore the funding to the general fund transfer to the State Street Aid in the amount of $200,000. Further, the $500,000 for additional school security be moved to the FY21 capital budget, and that the administration be directed to apply for grant funding through the School Violence Prevention Grant. Number 2, change the funding source for the following projects in the general fund IRP. The Watkins Library, Watkins Lobby, $100,000. The simulcast room, $30,000. The security system, $10,000, to be funded by the grant awarded by the state of Tennessee for the Grove project. Add a generator to the FY20 IRP at $270,000, to be funded by a grant awarded by the state of Tennessee for the Grove project. Change the funding source for the CIP in FY20 for the following projects: GPAC Grove fencing at $300,000, landing pad and sidewalk at $50,000, to be funded by the grant awarded by the state of Tennessee for the Grove project. I need water or something here. Add the following projects to the FY20 CIP: sidewalk from the library to GPAC at $40,000, contract closeout of the Grove, $175,000, to be funded by the grant awarded by the state of Tennessee for the Grove project. Finally, to raise the general fund revenues to FY20 by the $410,000 due from the grant awarded by the state of Tennessee for the Grove project. Each alderman and our city clerk have a copy of this. I need a second.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that forward in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Discussion on the amendment.
I have an inquiry, Mayor.
Sure.
Are these going to be considered as one motion or two motions? They appeared to me when I got them that it was two separate motions.
It is one complete motion. The item is presented in the form of one unified motion that's been presented to the public and to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. You do have this evening and also second and third reading to make adjustments or bring other amendments forward. That was a point of order, so that does not take one of your times on the floor. It was motioned in second. Discussion? Vice Mayor Gibson.
So, and Alderman Yonda, I appreciate the amendment being brought forward to us earlier. Did have a couple of questions. So this looks like a total, just a quick math that I was able to do with everything except for that 410,000 general revenue or general fund revenue. That would be 975,000. So can you explain, or possibly, Mary, if you could direct staff to explain, raising the general fund revenues in FY20 by 410,000?
Yes.
I'll be glad to direct that question to administration, Mr. Lawton, or any of your team.
Absolutely, I'd address that. So the 900, Alderman Gibson, you're correct, that adds up to $975,000 in terms of moving what was projects identified in either the infrastructure replacement program or the capital improvements program, and then bringing forward at least one project, the generator, which was an alternate that we were not able to afford at the time we opened the bid on the Grove. That was either a 21 or a 22 project. To bring those into FY20 and to change the funding source from general funds, reserves, or the capital fund. And that totals $975,000. So when you think about the $2.5 million grant that that GPAC will be receiving, we're going to apply that to $975,000 of expenses. The reason you see the general fund revenues increasing only by 410, that is for those infrastructure replacement projects, which total 410,000. The balance are coming will be funded out of the city's capital fund. And so, for example, when we issue a contract for the GPAC Grove fencing at $300,000, if it comes in at that amount, there will be a transfer from the foundation to the city to pay that. But we're only increasing the dollars in the IRP, which is totally funded out of the general fund. I hope that makes sense.
So that would be that generator at 270, and then the three in paragraph 2 where it says Watkins Lobby,
Yes, ma'am.
tune of about 100, not
Yes,
about,
that is
140,000.
That's the 410.
Thank you.
Further discussion on this amendment? Alderman Sanders?
I have a question, Mayor. If we take the $500,000 that we were, additional dollars that we were going to give to school security and move it to FY21, how does that affect the projects that the school board had considered when they asked the city for that
thank
funding?
you. City Administrator, would you like to direct that, or have the
will perhaps to the superintendent, and
chime
I
in?
can address it as well. But
Make
Mr.
sure you're
Manning?
on green. Thank you.
On green. For us, it means that we essentially don't complete the Dogwood security projects that we had allocated. Remember, we were asking for the additional funding at that FAC meeting that you attended to do both Houston Middle School and to do Dogwood. So that means that moves down the list to the next fiscal year for us. There are other things besides just a secure entrance that we're also talking about, products that would also enhance our schools. So we talk about BDAs, which are radio amplifiers for our police officers, for our fire officials. When they're in the buildings, we have dead spots, and so we are looking at amplifiers for them. I know we've started that analysis. That's one of those things at Dogwood that we'll have to push to that next fiscal year. They're looking at different products to secure doors to make sure that if we have an armed intruder, we're able to lock down. So know that it essentially takes all those components that were included for the Dogwood project and moves them to that next fiscal year. We would not be able to accomplish those at this time.
Mayor, I might
Yes,
ask-
go ahead.
Also add, if I could, the The motion also directs the staff to pursue the school violence prevention grant, and that is right at $500,000. If we secure that, and our track record in securing grants has been excellent in terms of the work that our staff does, we will provide that for the district. And we're working with the district, their safety personnel to make that happen. But regardless, if this motion passes, we will make sure that $500,000 is available July 1 of 2020, as soon as the budget is adopted, to complete some of the projects that Mr. Manuel discussed.
Thank you. Alderman Sanders?
I would also like to know if the school board had their wish list. If you had the $1 million that currently in the budget and the $500,000 grant, would you also need additional money to complete all other security projects that you anticipate?
Superintendent, if you'd like to field that, that would be great.
We believe that those fundings would help us accomplish those at Houston Middle School, but like I said, there are other projects that we are always looking. So know, for example, that we're looking at rekeying all of our interior doors. We've done that. They're called proprietary keys, where no one can actually go out and make a copy of those. So know that there are other projects that we don't have allocated with those funds at this time, but know that we always have an extensive list of security things that we would need or would want to add to our facilities. But that would be one of those, is those proprietary keys for all interior doors in our schools.
Any other discussion on this item?
I really wish that these items were separate, because I support what Alderman Yonda is trying to do about utilizing the state grant money. But I cannot agree with not providing the funding the school needs for security of our citizens, our children. I just think that's more important than the $300,000 for paving at this time, and the $200,000 for the paving, and $300,000 in our parks, because those projects are not as paramount as the safety of our children in our schools. So I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be able to support this amendment, Alderman Yonda, because of that fact. I think we should move forward and follow the FAC's recommendation that they initially made. I do know that at the following meeting, they agreed with the motion that you made to not provide that funding at this time, but I think it's prudent for us as a board to do all we can to support the security of our children, the safety of our children as they are in the learning environment, so they don't have to worry about their safety. So I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be able to support this.
Thank you. That pretty much concludes your time. Further discussion on this item? Anyone else besides that would want another, or in the first round?
Have I had a first round?
I'm
doing the amendment.
You have not. Go ahead, Alderman Yonda. My apologies.
First of all, let me clarify a couple of things. Number one, the original $500,000 that the CIP that they asked for at the schools was for both Dogwood and Houston Middle School. There was no change in that we were aware of until the FAC meeting, of which they brought up the fact that there was Houston Middle School had $200 and some odd thousand worth of security that they didn't think they would be able to fund. So one of our members suggested that we make, which is kind of backwards, make a recommendation. We should be making a recommendation to us to do $500,000. It didn't make sense to me. It was for Houston Middle that we would be taking it from these other two projects. We were going to try to fund it somewhere else. The issue I have with that is they didn't ask for the original. The first $500,000 should go to Dogwood. Houston Middle School is going to be in construction. By the time July comes around, they may have it ready, they may not have it ready to be able to utilize this additional $500,000 in 2020. Now, for the same reason that you're thinking, Alderman Sanders.
Direct the questions through the chair, Alderman Yonda. Go ahead and continue.
Same reasons that he mentioned that he thinks security is important, I do too. And if they cannot fund this from the cash flow from a $1.5 million for a ballpark or from other things that are, to me, not as important as security, and then being reimbursed in July, which I think will be a timely event if we don't get the grant. So they've only asked for $500,000 for both of them. The FAC recommended another $500,000, and I've come up with, along with our professionals, a way that we can try to fund this with a grant or have it the first week of July, which this was not for Dogwood. This was for Houston Middle School. That was what the conversation came from and went to. So I don't know about taking it away from Dogwood when you can do it with the first $500,000 that we are eventually going to grant. So I'm not sure of the politics of this, but I think that we can make it happen to where they have it in a timely fashion when they're doing the construction on Houston Middle School, which was the intent of the FAC. There's a point of information for you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman. Further discussion? Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. And Superintendent, I appreciate you being here to help us with those questions. You were certainly the front and center at those meetings. That was my recollection, is that that was what that conversation was. This was something that during that Financial Advisory Commission meeting, that came really as a surprise, which we don't normally do those as a surprise. We do the fiscal note, make certain that we know where those monies are going to come from, and so to pull those from different projects. Can you speak to
Vice Mayor, I'll be glad to direct the superintendent.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes,
I
and if you could summarize your question, that was more of a statement.
So my question is that initial conversation that this was to go towards the Houston Middle School expansion security, those, and then how we got to the Dogwood conversation.
So,
go ahead, Mr. Superintendent.
So for us, remember, we're talking about the funding of the Houston Middle School project. And when we did the original placeholder for the funding, we weren't looking at programming. We were just now going through that programming for Houston Middle School. And as I said, this project, that we are very grateful to the city for giving us the $5 million for Houston Middle School's project. Know that this is looking to be an $8 to an $8.5 million project at Houston Middle School, which is why the school district is taking $3 million out of our reserve to fund that other portion. While we're doing this project at that school, it makes sense that essentially we're changing the entrance at the same time of the school. We can have a main secure entrance built if we're building on to this same project. So for us, what we're saying is that is the first project in the pipeline that is going through that we're going to be able to take care of, which is why we need that funding that this body is going to approve that first $500,000 to go towards that project. Know that we could consecutively then do the Dogwood project, but it's because we're doing the addition at this time that we would want the Houston Middle School funding first, do it all at once because it's all going to be part of the same building, and then do the Dogwood project. If we receive the additional funding for Dogwood, we would then start the planning for that Dogwood secure entrance and those other features at that same time.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
And just to reiterate that this is a process. You as a district have made a prioritization of where those funds would be allocated at certain times. And so you're saying Houston Middle first, then to the Dogwood project. Thank you.
Further discussion on this particular item? Alderman Owens.
Yes, thanks. Good discussion. This is great, having a respectful dialogue amongst us about important topics. It's refreshing. And so I would say, I feel like Alderman Sanders, the importance of our security cannot be overlooked. My question would be, if we apply for, I think I know the answer to this, but if we apply for the grant and were to receive the grant, but had already allocated the money, we can't get reimbursed for that.
Alderman Owens, staff, do you have an answer for that?
Your question.
If you can restate that.
If we receive the grant funding, this body will recognize the grant, and then we can make those dollars available for security improvements, which is the whole intent of this grant through the School Violence Prevention Program. We're currently working with the police department. We're working with Mr. Manual security experts at the school and our SRO lieutenant embedded in the school to make sure we hit those deadline dates for the grant. And You can't promise anything, but our track record in grant writing has been outstanding.
I follow your chain of thought. So if we, in essence, if we fund this, we bypass a grant opportunity. Because
That's
we
my
won't-
question.
Yes.
Is that the
correct?
case?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be used for construction and doubt if we'd be able to reimburse, but I can't say for certain. We'll look at that.
If you would, maybe prior to our public hearing, that'd be a question I would have.
We'll contact the state. Go ahead. You still have the floor.
Just going to squeeze out my last 3.5 minutes here. What is our total funding for the school system this year?
City Administrator, go ahead.
Yes, let me get that, Mayor. There are two areas. We have the CIP. Just give me a second to put my hands on that.
Mayor, I have this information in front of me that was handed to me. It's $12,575,359. That includes everything: our resource officers, maintenance of efforts, Shelby County settlement, Riverdale addition debt service principal. The other one was interest, GMSD payment for City of Riverdale addition, new school service debt, interest, new schools debt service principal, Houston middle interest and principal, $500,000 for security improvements, boiler $1.5 million, Houston High School field house and auditorium $200,000, and then of course the middle school addition $5 million. So that comes out to $12,575,359.
Thank you, Alderman.
Alderman
Is that,
Yondes,
can you,
I can verify that. I'm looking at the same information.
there's no need to read it all again.
Yes,
Is that
that
accurate?
is the $12,575,359. It includes those capital and operating expenses.
Alderman Owens, you still have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, I apologize for not doing this prior to this first reading, but I'd like to sit down with you, Mr. Manuel, as well as you, Mr. Lawton, and review those numbers. And yeah, I understand the reasoning for going with the $500,000 for Houston. Now that you've explained that, I wasn't aware of that, and I guess splitting that up between the two. Obviously, most people know here that I'm a little bit, well, heck, I've got a kid in each school, so maybe I need to recuse myself altogether. But anyways, I'll cease with my comments, but I would like to meet with you both prior to public hearing. I'll be voting to support this just to move it along to the public hearing and have some further discussion on it.
Further discussion on the item? Alderman Sanders?
I'd just like clarification once again. I believe I heard Mr. Manuel say that if he had the $1 million plus the $500,000 from the grant, that he has enough projects waiting or available that he could use all that money for security and that we would not be at a risk of losing the grant.
I think you just restated what he said earlier.
Okay, and let me also add that last year when the board gave additional funding, $500,000 for security improvements to the school district, it sounded like some public have told me that they thought they were getting additional money, but in the end, the money was actually taken off of the $1.5 million for the boilers, which caused the school district to have to make up that $500,000. We did give them, we actually didn't give them any extra money. We actually ended up earmarking money, which hampered what the school district was trying to do, in my opinion. So I think if we leave this in and we don't take it out, that we could, in essence, make them whole, but also speed up much-needed security issues that are looming in our school district to protect our children. I would, just these days with the things that are happening around the country, I just don't think that we ought to put road paving and parks ahead of that. I think if we could take care of those as soon as possible, that the citizens would be much appreciative, as would be the school board. So I don't know. I guess I would have to ask a question of parliamentary procedure, if there's a way, if it's appropriate, to make a motion to sever these two items.
You can divide the question.
So I'd like to divide the question, as he's got it on the sheet, between 1 and 2. because I do support everything he has, and two, I cannot support number one, just for the reasons stated. So
dividing the question does require, so the question, or dividing the question will be to vote on only item 1, which you have clearly in front of you. That's to move to amend the budget on first reading, I'm reading it into the record, to restore the funding for Oak Lawn Gardens Phase 1 Parks Project in the amount of $300,000 and restore funding to the general fund transfer to State Street Aid in the amount of $200,000. Further, the $500,000 for additional school security be moved to the FY21 capital budget, and that the administration be directed to apply for grant funding through the School Violence Prevention Grant. It's been asked to divide that into a separate question. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. There is no discussion on this item. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes. And
But the roll call has been
is it to sever them or on the issue? Okay, thank you.
Continue with the roll call.
Alderman Owens?
Clarity or point of order, we're voting on simply to divide one motion into two.
Correct.
Thank you, yes.
Alderman Yonda?
I'm okay with it.
Yes.
Yes, it's fine.
Alderman Sanders?
Yes.
She doesn't have an okay box.
Yeah, I know. Can we still have conversation on this?
Well, the question has been divided.
Okay.
Let me check with our...
Because I have not done my second time on this.
The item number 1 is a fresh item, and so you have the floor. Actually, the Alderman Sanders brought it forward, so you have the floor if you'd like to discuss further.
I'll pass it this time and reserve the right to speak later.
Yes, Alderman Yonda.
Mayor, my question to the superintendent is, does he not have the cash flow to fund the $500,000 out of the $10 million that he's projecting at the end of the year to fund this until we can give him, in the event we don't get the grant, the other $500,000 on July 1st?
Mr. Superintendent, do you feel comfortable answering that question?
I do not, because I do not feel that's my authority to answer that type of question. That would be a question for my board on their willingness, so I can't speak toward it. I do have one board member, Ms. Griffith, here, but I don't feel like I can comment towards that on how they decide to spend our reserve or how to spend our cash flow. That's not my authority.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. You should continue. You have the floor.
Well, so I didn't get that answered. It's been my thoughts that they have plenty of cash to be able to fund that $500,000 while we do our budget the way the process is made. So the FAC has voted for this to happen that way, and that's their recommendation. I'm following that recommendation because I believe that we do need to fund the $300,000 for parks. We do need to fund the $200,000 street aid, and I believe that the security, which is important, I have 2 grandsons there, can be funded by the school board, and we would reimburse them in July following the process in which we are supposed to do our budgeting. It was unfortunate that we went backwards in the FAC, but this is the way we do it. They first came to us with $500,000 for both projects. We then realized that they needed more money. We figured out a way to fund it, and I believe if it comes up that they need to utilize some of their cash flow, they have plenty of cash flow based on the information they gave us. So it's up to the school board to make that decision on whether that's a priority for them versus the other items that I think are frivolous. Thank you.
Further discussion, Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And Alderman Yonda, I appreciate your comments on the topic. As the only former school board member, I appreciate the difficulty that superintendent brings to his board in the decisions that have to be made as far as making those priority calls. What is I won't say or is not important, is really not it. It is not that much of a comparison and contrast. It's all important. It deals with our children. When we talk about safety, it is all important. To say that we are, as a board of mayor and aldermen, where we have a greater purview, to compare school safety versus our park system or our library system, I don't think that that is an apples to apples comparison. I think that given the conversations at the financial advisory, when folks were able to come forward, when the district presented your budget, I think that for us to be asked to answer a question that I really believe the school board needs to give direction on. I think that Alderman Yonda has come forward with a solution. July 1 is not that far away. I think that, especially in the entire budget process, what we're saying is that we're going to remove this from the budget conversation, seek the grant process. If that fails, then we'll make certain that those monies are provided July 1st. Is that correct?
City Administrator, is that something that you can speak to?
Yes, and I mean, the way the ordinance is written, the amendment is written, that is correct. We've applied for the grant. If we're unsuccessful, then we will, you're directing through this motion, have those dollars available in FY 21 or July 1, 2020.
So I go back to the import for when the district brings us the budget, that these were monies that they had not identified. And so I just would humbly ask that those go back to that board. I think this is a good solution without us taking those monies or having to address them in this particular budget. And I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Further discussion? Alderman Sanders?
I'd just like to make one final plea to my colleagues. Just as we provide public safety for our citizens, we're putting $1 million or plus towards our police in this budget to start a new district. We're adding a large amount of money to fund our firefighters. The public is happy with that. I just think we should give the school district this additional funds or leave it as it is presented in this budget. Also seek that additional $500,000 to help them with their security needs. The superintendent said he has other needs, security related, in addition to this money. I don't want to see the school board to have to spend money that they should use to educate children to provide safety that we can provide by way of providing this funding to the school board to let these projects move forward as quickly as possible before we're sorry that something happened that we could have addressed. And that's it. I just ask you to please support leaving this the way it is.
Further discussion? We return to the question, and in a moment we'll call the roll. I will take chair privilege. I do vote in the case of a tie. I will just simply ask the superintendent, if directed, if this is a priority for you, would you make those recommendations to your board to enhance security? You know, vis-a-vis, we are waiting to apply for a grant, so the money is there. We're waiting on the grant to be able to fund it. So we're not removing funds for you, it's just the timing of it.
Yes, I can speak for myself that yes, but not for
Well, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. That's what I thought. Thank you. Please call the roll.
I'm sorry, what are we calling the roll?
On the divided question, on number 1.
Alderman Sanders?
No.
Alderman Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
The question carries. We return to the main motion, which was divided, and so for the sake of time, you have your sheet in front of you. It's everything item 2 and down, if that's clear for you. And in a moment, let me confer with our parliamentarian for a moment. Alderman Owens, you're the only person that has not spoke twice to this. You have the floor if you wish, or you can move to a roll call.
Going to reserve my comments for public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Motion carries and moves to second reading and public hearing. We move to item number 13 on the agenda, ordinance number 2019-2, year-end budget adjustments, first reading. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. As I'd mentioned during the discussion on the, at the 5:30 preliminary agenda review.
I have
and the other
preliminary
review of the agenda
parliamentary inquiry.
Yes.
Mayor. We voted on the 2 amendments. We didn't vote
on the budget yet.
We didn't
Oh,
vote
I'm
on
sorry.
12.
My apologies. My apologies. And we have, thank you for your observation.
Good job.
So many things happened at that particular time, it led to a certain amount of confusion. So the original motion is to approve on first reading ordinance number 2019-1, establishing the FY20 proposed budget and to set Monday, June 10th, 2019, for the second reading and public hearing. That was properly motioned and seconded, and we can call the roll at this time.
Discussion?
If you'd like, go ahead.
I wanted to inquire, Mayor, on your budget. Did we know, looking at the outlying years, 2023, we are going to be in a deficit situation and that we're going to have to make some changes, either enhanced revenue or a property tax increase? So did the administration take that in consideration, and did we try to look at trimming our current budget for the next few years so we could bank some money into our reserves and lessen the burden, tax burden, in 2023?
I'll let the city administrator answer a portion of that. I'll lead off by saying we do set tax revenues, or try to, in 5-year budget planning cycles. And so the last budget or last revenue increase for the city, we project to take us through that 5th year and almost a 6th year. City administrator?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, that is exactly correct. When we looked at this year's budget and in last year's budget, there was a commitment when we raised taxes in 2017 that would last a 5-year planning period, and this budget absolutely does that. So when we talk about being good financial stewards, we are able to do what we said we were going to do with a great deal of certainty, and to cover the 5 years with that period. You could continue to push out and push out and push out the outer years, but at some point there's going to have to be some type of an adjustment. Who knows what the economy will look like in 2023 or 2024? There's always the opportunity for staff in those outer years to look at capital where we have a lot of discretion in terms of operating. But in terms of trimming additional dollars from the operating budget, it's extremely lean. Yes, it shows an 8% increase, but most of that is attributed to much needed replacement of our rolling stock through our infrastructure replacement program. I am pleased during this 5-year period that we adjusted taxes in 2017 that we've been actually able to do more than what we had anticipated. Rather than to push that out any further or cut those, I think it's important that we do take more money and apply it to street paving while we have those resources in our sales tax. We can always cut those back if necessary. When I say those elastic revenues called sales tax, I am pleased that with this 5-year plan that we're able to add an additional district in our police department because we have the revenues to do that. We could cut those items. We could cut street paving. We could cut a number of things and make this model work for a longer period of time, but that's not the administration's recommendation. Again, the budget that we provide you is the budget that is prepared by the city administrator and given to the board. Those are our recommendations.
Thank you. And
Thank
since the tax increase, we had 2018 and 2019, were either of those years a flat budget or a lesser budget than the previous year? Or did they both increase?
They were moderate increases. I think last year's budget from 18 to 19, I want to say increased just over 2%. But again, most of that is driven by, not by personnel, which a lot of it is, because remember, we're a service industry. 80% of what we do, and if you look at that budget or expenditures, come in the form of the salaries and benefit and wages. And we did have increases in all those areas, whether it was insurance or the pension plan or OPEB. We did have increases there, and we addressed those. But for the past couple of years, we have adhered to a 3% merit packet and step increases for police and fire. The majority of the increases, again, that you're going to see in the operating budget pertain to replacement of our infrastructure, which, as you know, if you've read a lot of articles in public works magazines and mayors and city managers magazines, one of the things that cities put off to the detriment of the community is repairing their infrastructure and not investing the way the city of Germantown does.
And I would just add, City Administrator, that, in light of the sunsetting of the hall income tax has been a major challenge, and then the major investment in public education has been as one as well. And to be able to toe the line with those things is truly remarkable. Go ahead, continue, please.
Well, I just think, knowing what we know, that that tax increase is looming, or revenue enhancement, whatever you might want to call it, that I think it's prudent that we look in the upcoming years and try to limit the amount that we're increasing our budgets from year to year, realizing that, yes, we did promise that it would carry on for the 5 years, but if it went 6, 7, or 8, I think the citizens would be happy. So
thank you. And we agree with you completely. The floor is open. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders.
yes.
Thank you, and I do apologize for moving too quickly. Y'all, it is adopted. The motion is adopted and approved and moves to second reading and public hearing. Takes us to item 13, ordinance number 2019-2, year-end budget adjustments. First reading. Mr. Lawton.
Yes, Mayor, I will go through these and look for assistance from my team down in the budget staff if I forget something or I'm not accurate. The budget adjustments that you see at the end of the year are essentially the opportunity for this body to true up the expenditures for FY19, where we have budget overruns, whether it's a contract issue that they came in more, or it's a project that we had not anticipated at the beginning of the fiscal year but want to address now. So the first one before you is budget adjustment number 19-96. We had $65,000 budgeted this year for seat replacements at GPAC, which essentially is removing 4 rows of seats at GPAC and replacing them with 4 rows, with the opportunity to increase the budget by just over $2,000 for an upgrade for the fabric and the material that would be on those seats, that would cover those seats. I can tell you, we probably did the same thing in 1993 when we put the seats in, because they've lasted 25 years. So it's a good investment, and so this budget adjustment would increase the funding for that as well. The next item, 19-97 budget adjustment, is to fund the additional cost related to the State Street Aid project, not State Street Aid, the Safe Routes to School project. The bid came in higher than anticipated, and we told the board at that time when this was adopted, in fact, it was the last board meeting, April 22nd of 2019, that there would be a budget adjustment coming forward to the board to cover these additional expenses in the amount of $335,000, in the amount of $115,000 for both phases of the State Street Aid project, and that's what is before you today or this evening. That fund balance amount is where those dollars will be coming from. The year-end ambulance adjustment 19-98, we were recommending an additional transfer from the general fund to the ambulance fund to take care of additional expenses that we see. It's not necessarily a collection or problem with our collections, but moreover, it's the type of insurance payments that we are receiving for our ambulance program. So that'll transfer dollars from the general fund to the to the ambulance fund. 19-99 is for the MLGW connections in relationship to work at the Grove. We've got a little more detail on that. That's not just only the Grove transformer, but also it will be its own separate metered center as well. 19-100, we discussed that earlier, or I touched on it rather. This is the transfer related to moving the retained earnings at the with the Germantown Athletic Club from retained earnings to support the building improvements that Mr. Rogers went over for the renovation, Phase 4 renovation. Regarding Public Works, the original budget, 19-101 budget adjustment, there was $68,000 included in that original bid for the pour and play work at Dogwood and Riverdale Parks. The bid came in higher. We're recommending an adjustment from the general fund to support that in the amount of $14,953. Budget adjustment number 19-102 is moving $144,000. Again, it was a major road project, the Winchester milling and paving. It came in over budget, so we're recommending moving from the fund balance, the city's fund balance, the additional dollars to cover that.
100% reimbursed?
Yeah.
80/20.
80/20, thank you, Adrian. And then finally, a project that was not anticipated in this year's budget coming out of our utility fund was the total rupture of the tank that holds the chlorine for our water plant system. We thought we could Band-Aid that and push it off a little bit further, but it totally ruptured, and we're recommending that we move from the utility fund's retained earnings sufficient dollars, the amount of $353,076 to support that work. This work is done. We treated this as an emergency purchase late summer, early fall to get this work done. And Mayor, that is the budget adjustments for first reading. Now, what typically happens as we move through the remainder of the 3 readings, there may be a couple more budget adjustments that staff, as they're talking to department heads, will develop or identify and bring forward to this body.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 2019-2 for year-end budget adjustments on first reading and set Monday, June 10th, 2019 for second reading and public hearing? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Sanders.
I just had a couple of questions on 1996, Mayor. When we authorized that seating and the subsequent change order, did we not do a budget transfer at that time?
City Administrator and GPAC Director?
No, that's what's coming to you now, was we had budgeted for the chairs, and again, it's 4 rows, but we made the decision to increase the material by the additional $2,000 because it's a much better product.
And 1999, is that work on the MLG&W connection already been completed? Has that done?
City Administrator?
Mr.
Douglas?
Would the administration consider using funds from that grant from the state, since this relates to the Grove project, instead of taking this out of our other funding?
Reynold, when will the work be done, or should be done?
So is there a possibility in the next budget year or
Yes.
in the next fiscal year?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes.
So you would entertain removing 1999 from this amendment, ordinance?
Can it?
And funding that
with the tax,
with the
grant.
grant from the state, yes,
Sir.
we could do that.
So should I make that motion now, as we do, to pull 1999 from this ordinance?
Well, we can do that, staff-driven, can we not, for second reading? Or do you need it in a form of a motion?
I'm looking at Mr. Heisman. Yes. The timing again on it, Mr. Douglas, in relationship to work on the Grove, you say this summer, but we have June. Is it something that's going to happen in July or August? But it won't be in June. Is that a fair statement? Well, Mayor, it sounds as though we can move this to FY20 and apply the grant funding towards this.
Yes, my question is for City Attorney, I guess, from a functional standpoint, subject to Alderman, if without objection, we can remove this and not have it included in second reading, if that's fine.
Just a couple of questions. I know when I spoke with Mr. Chandler.
Well, one second, please. Let's address Alderman Sanders' request. If not, then we'll let him make a formal motion later on. Is there any objection to us removing this?
I may have an objection.
Okay, that's fine. All right. You have the floor. Would you like to make a motion?
I would like to move that we remove budget transfer or appropriation number 1999 from this agenda item.
That's been brought forth in a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Clerk, that was pretty simple. Did you get that? Currently the motion to amend is on the floor, and Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. If we could, I know I had a conversation with Mr. Chandler about things that would be coming from the state as far as the directives or the very specific uses for this grant that we could or could not use. And I know that we don't have that now, but I think by second reading, that was the hope, is that the state would produce that. Is this something that, since this is seating for, is it specific to the Grove?
It's the transformer, and Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
It is, what we do know about the stipulations on the grant is it is to be used for capital, not for operating, and this would be clearly a capital expense.
Great. Thank you.
Good.
Answers. Appreciate
Great.
it.
Any other discussion on the motion? Alderman Yonda.
Are we saying the check has already been cut to Memphis Light, Gas and Water?
I do not believe so. Has payment been made, administration?
Yes, sir. Payment has been made. That takes care of the problem.
Well then, Mayor, that poses a different question, because one thing we've talked about with the grant is it's not going to be used for reimbursement. It's going to be used for new capital outlay. And so, having said that, we should probably move forward with the way it is. I understand Mayor Alderman Sanders' concern, but if we've written the check, what we do know, or at least what we assume, and this may change when we get more details on the grant, that it won't be used for reimbursement for city expenses, because after all, the grant is being made to GPAC, not the city.
Thank you for the clarification. Further discussion on, or Alderman Yonda, you still have the floor.
Done. Thank you.
Further discussion on this particular item? Alderman Sanders?
I'm curious how we wrote a check for this $54,000 item without an item that came before the board to approve.
It's not a, excuse me, Mayor.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's not a $54,000 item. It's the $672.
$672.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
In light of the somewhat small dollar amount, and also in light of the timing mechanism, administration would humbly respect that you would consider withdrawing your motion.
I'll agree to withdraw, not because it's a small dollar amount, but since the check's been written and
sure.
We can't do that, any amount of money that we could save the taxpayer and put towards that grant I would want to do.
We greatly appreciate that. Is that with the consent of the board, without objection? Thank you. We return to the main motion, and there has been a motion and a second. Vice Mayor Gibson has had the floor once. Alderman Sanders, did you want the floor?
Yes, since I didn't know if my time had run out since we had that additional motion, but I did have
you have the floor,
another
sir.
question. On the pour and play at Dogwood and Riverdale Parks, that's number 19101. It came in, it's my understanding that it came in over bid, and that's the reason we're needing this adjustment?
Mr. Lawton?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
So would that not be an item that we, when it's overbid or in that, such that amount, that it shouldn't it have come back to the board first before we made?
Go ahead.
I don't have that agenda item in front of me from when that was approved back last fall, but I can provide that information for you. And my recollection was that we noted that there would be a year-end budget adjustment at the end of the year, and that's what's coming for you now. And typically we'll do that with items that are over budget significantly, that part of the approval process, we will state in the agenda sheet that there'll be a year-end budget adjustment, but if you allow me to follow up on that, I will.
Please do, and maybe I can address that then if I can get that information before the second reading.
We will be glad to fulfill that request and provide that information for you. Staff, you got understood? Yep. Further discussion? You still have the floor.
That'll be it, Mayor.
Further discussion on this item? Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Motion and agenda item is approved. We move to the public hearing in June. Takes us to item 14 on the agenda, ordinance 2019-3, real and personality property taxes. Mr. Lawton?
Excuse me. I'll keep this presentation brief. Before the board is the ordinance on first reading to set the personal and real property taxes for the city of Germantown. As the board is aware, this is an ad valorem tax that we place on property within the city. The amount of taxes generated from this is not only on the real estate, but it's also on the personal property that is owned by businesses throughout the community. We are recommending no change to the tax rate on first reading and respectfully request that the board approve this and advance this to second reading and the public hearing. Well, I will add one other thing, Mayor, that the amount of property taxes generated from real estate and personal property tax should produce in our community $32,450, and that is included in the FY20 budget. It's the largest single source of revenue that we have. And one other thing about it, even though it's the largest single component, we have seen a reduction every year because of our increase in other taxes such as sales tax. We're now to about 57% of our overall general fund budget is supported by property taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance number 2019-3 establishing the certified tax rate of $1.95 on first reading and set Monday, June 10th, 2019 for public hearing? Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Sanders,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Alderman Owens.
Yes.
Motion carries. Agenda items approved. We move to second reading and public hearing in June. Takes us to item 15 on the agenda, ordinance 2019-4, Germantown Municipal School District year-end budget adjustments. First reading. Mr. Lawton?
Thank you, Mayor. Much like the city has budget adjustments at the end of the year, the same holds true for the school district. What's attached to agenda item number 15 on first reading are all the various budget adjustments throughout the year that have been approved, recommended by the superintendent, and approved by the Germantown Municipal School Board. I can't go into details on it. I don't know if Mr. Manuel is in a position to, but these have all been vetted through the school districts, through Mr. Manuel's office, and certainly went forward to the to the school board for approval as well. So we're recommending adoption of this on first reading and set public hearing. And Mr. Manuel, will there be any other adjustments you think coming forward?
Go ahead.
To our general budget or this previous year's?
Just the previous years, the current.
There's always the potential that as we settle up the ADA funding at the end of the school year, that there could be a potential change.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 2019-4 for Germantown Municipal School District year-end budget adjustments for first reading and set Monday, June 10th, 2019 for second reading and public hearing?
Move to approve.
The motion?
Second.
So motion and a second. Mr. Superintendent, there are a lot of them here. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. Discussion? Vice Mayor.
A very simple question. Do you have the date of when these were approved at the district level? Which school board meeting that was?
Each of the items, they're approved every single meeting. So if you look at the list.
So it goes throughout?
It goes throughout the entire year. So typically we will average 2 to 3 budget amendments a meeting, and we have the rationale, we have a discussion as we go through those items.
Exactly. All right, so say, let's see, for budget item number 1, where it says approval denial, that approve effective is the 8/20/18. Is that the date that it went through?
Yes, ma'am.
I just appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Sanders.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Alderman Owens.
Yes.
Alderman Yonda.
Yes.
The agenda item and the motion carries. We move to item 6. Mr. Superintendent, thank you for being in attendance this evening. We've got a zoning case coming up. Did you want to stay for that? We'll see you. Have a good evening. Thank you. We appreciate the partnership and the work that we do together. Thank you. That takes us to item 16 on the agenda, ordinance 2019-10, rezoning of a 15.229 acre portion of the Fulmer property, south side of Wolf River Boulevard, from R residential to O office zoning. First reading. Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I'll try and be as succinct as the last couple of items on the agenda. This is a rezoning request. This is the first reading of it for the just over 15-acre area of land on the 190-acre parcel known as Fulmer Farms, owned by the Fulmer family, and has been residential since this area was annexed into Germantown in 1973. And this was verified per the 1960 Shelby County zoning history map. Planning Commission considered this request. This is the 190 acres total. They considered this request at their April meeting and approved the zoning request to change this 15-acre tract from its current residential to office zoning. Part of that was due in consideration of the 2014 Medical District Corridor study that laid out the development of this corridor, which is one of our key commercial areas, as outlined in Germantown Forward 2030. And so making sure that this could be considered as part of that, the study looked at the traffic impacts, and we have planned accordingly for that at the intersection and for future build-out. This is the conceptual site plan that was submitted as part of the rezoning application. Rezonings are based on changes in zoning district that are permitted whenever the public necessity, convenience, general welfare, or good zoning practices justify such actions, as well as changes in the neighborhood, changes in traffic patterns, roadway networks, and other modifications to the area. This is what a landscape plan may look like around it. Again, this is all concept. Concepts are required as part of the zoning code. They do, if the zoning change is considered as part of this 3-reading process, with the second reading following the same path as the budget, this would be part of the consideration, but they would have to file for site plan approval with the Planning Commission as their next step once the 3rd reading has been completed. Happy to answer any questions. As mentioned earlier, this does conform with the Germantown Medical Corridor District traffic study, as well as Germantown Forward 30, which encourages investments in our key commercial areas, of which this is in the Wolf River Medical District corridor, and also a sustainable business practice as this extends the office uses in this area. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ross, for your presentation. Is there a motion to approve on first reading ordinance 2019-10, the rezoning of a 15.229-acre portion of the Fulmer property, south side of Wolf River Boulevard, from R residential to O office zoning, and set a public hearing for June 10th, 2019? Is there a motion?
So moved.
So motion, is there a second?
Second.
One of us.
There's a motion and a second. The second was a tie to Vice Mayor Gibson. Discussion? Alderman Owens.
Just, I guess, clarify that the hour's late, but this was reviewed and approved unanimously by the Planning Commission. There have been considerable amount of changes in the area, including the road itself. Wolf River Boulevard was constructed along the border of this property. The development pattern along the north side of Wolf River Boulevard has developed and as Class A office, also on the south side in some instances. And I think it was the opinion, I don't want to speak for the rest of the Planning Commission members, but speaking for myself, that the change was warranted and justified and made good land use planning sense. That's all my comments.
Thank you, Alderman Owens. Further discussion? Alderman Sanders?
I had a question back on the slide that was on the screen. It said 11 in the top left corner with the circles on potential land use scenario. Is the property we're looking at tonight, is that the far left circle?
Mr. Ross?
Mayor, to the Alderman, yes, this is the property that is considered tonight.
Thank you.
And when was this land use scenario completed?
Continue.
2014.
So it's not anything new. I support the rezoning. I think that medical district is a great asset for our community and our citizens that live here, being close to their doctors and what have you. So it looks like, from what I've seen of the drawings preliminarily, it's going to be a good fit for the community. So I was just making sure it wasn't something that wasn't included in that plan, and thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Sanders?
Yes.
Motion carries. I would recommend to staff that that item be on second reading, be placed somewhere before the budget. Matter of fact, I wouldn't recommend it. I would desire that, not last. We have reached the conclusion of our meeting. We are adjourned.
Thank you.